Nathan Hall Harris was born May 17, 1976, in Reading, Pennsylvania. He achieved the rank of an E4 Army Specialist for the Army Rangers. He was able to be promoted to an E5. After he left the Army, he went back to college and returned to his normal life. Today, he lives in Bethel, Pennsylvania. He lives with his wife and he has 2 sons. His mother's name was Deborah Agnes Robinson, and his father's name was William Paul Harris. His mother had been a homemaker her entire life, and his father was a realtor. Because his parents were not married, Mr. Harris had many siblings. He had 3 sisters and 4 brothers. 2 of his brothers had served in the Army, and out of those 2, one had also served in the National Guard. Even though Mr. Harris signed up to do a lot of dangerous work, his parents did not care for the kind of work he wanted to do. He had bought his father a rifle, and in exchange for that, his father would sign his paperwork so that he could join the military. Prior to joining the service, Mr. Harris attended Jackson Elementary School in Myerstown, Pennsylvania. He also attended Eastern Lebanon County High School, and after he left the military, he went to Reading Area Community College. Prior to enlisting, he also had several dishwashing jobs and he worked on a farm. Mr. Harris did not know exactly what he wanted to do after high school. However, after seeing a Ranger Squad drive a Zodiac boat into the back of a helicopter, he thought that's what he wanted to do. He had done research on the Rangers and found out that they were extremely close, and he wanted that sort of feeling. He had then enlisted with hopes that maybe his kids, his friends' kids, or maybe our generation did not have to serve. Mr. Harris has achieved the rank of an E4 Army Specialist. However, he was not able to be promoted to the rank E5. The rank he had did play a part in his duties. He unfortunately was involved in an accident that forced him to leave the Army Rangers. Before getting assigned to a unit, Mr. Harris had been through about a year and a half of training. Throughout training, he persevered through top-notch training in his Ranger Indoctrination Program, or RIP. The class he was in had 130 students in it, and only 28 of those 130 students graduated. In order to get through this first step of the program, you would have to have a clean record, which knocked a chunk of people out of the first stage. And then, Mr. Harris had to take a psychological evaluation and achieve top security clearance, and then, lastly, not have any broken bones, poor eyesight, be colorblind, or have bad hearing. Throughout Ranger training, Mr. Harris had almost no sleep, no food, and he endured a lot of work. He managed to make it through intense training with a very low graduation percent. Because he went through RIP, Mr. Harris was very specialized in his training. He had later gone on and used weaponry that most other people did not use. Mr. Harris had also drove a Zodiac boat into the back of a helicopter. Luckily, Mr. Harris did not think that all of his training was immensely difficult. Mr. Harris thought that basic training was easier than the rest of training because the students were provided with an adequate amount of food and sleep. And what made it good, he thought, was that you got stronger every day. Unfortunately, back then, there weren't many forms of communication. All there was a call center where you could spend money to call home and hope that someone was there to answer it, or they lost their money. Also, there was always writing letters at the time. After Mr. Harris's basic training, he had just kept training. Since he had an airborne ranger contract, he had to continue the training. He said that he did not get assigned to a unit then, but after training successfully, he was assigned to his preferred post, 3rd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, Fort Benning, Georgia.
Harris had trouble adapting to the military lifestyle. He says that he couldn't get used to the lack of freedom. He also said that he did not like the lack of free time and privacy. He served in conflicts in Africa and South America. He described them as less of combat and more of real-world missions, where they considered successful when no shots were fired at all. He noted that many of the places he went were very poor, and is thankful that he has the rights and privileges that we do today. Rangers used a variety of weapons. Harris qualified with weapons such as the M16A2, the M240 Golf, the M249 Assault, grenade launchers, 50 caliber machine guns, and Barrett sniper rifles. He particularly remembers the recoil from the snipers and grenade launchers. Harris formed many friendships that he holds to this day. He even named one of his sons after a friendship he had. He says that these friendships are different because they went through traumatic events together and have that in common. One of his hardest adjustments when becoming a civilian again is that people's lives are not on the line and these Loctite friendships cannot be formed. While forming new friendships, Harris had to keep in touch with family and friends back home. He mentioned that to do this, he had to buy a calling card to call home. He also talked about sending letters and how similar they are compared to writing text messages today. When not training or on missions, Harris enjoyed going on hikes. He also told us that while he was at Fort Benning and Campbell, he enjoyed hunting and fishing. He mentioned that many men in the Ranger Battalion celebrated every moment like it was their last. Harris told us that his favorite part of being a Ranger was the camaraderie and teamwork involved. He returned home on June 9, 1998, and his service ended 2 weeks later. He returned to Bethel, Pennsylvania, where he lives today. When Harris returned home, he was not received like he expected. He mentioned to us that many people thought he was a park ranger. He also had trouble adjusting to civilian life. He told us that civilian work had no risk to it, unlike when he was in the Rangers. Harris mentioned that it was easy to find a job after coming back. Harris has been changed through time and service. He said that the biggest thing he has learned is how fragile human life is. His biggest life lesson is to make a plan and adapt that plan to whatever happens in life. He wants future generations to do whatever they can to prevent war. One thing Harris wants people to take away from his story is that he tried to be the best soldier he could.